Good evening and welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm knowing that your heart space, your mind space is ready to engage in what is to unfold. Yeah, get free. How can I serve today, sweet Spirit? How can I serve today? Oh Lord, speak in ways that I will understand. Where you lead me, I will follow. Where you lead me, I will go. How can I love today, sweet Spirit? How can I love today? Oh Lord, speak in ways that I will understand. Where you lead me, I will follow. Where you lead me, I will go. So that is what the space and time is on our heart right now. Is can we open up to serve the greater good of our life, the greater expression of who and what we are. So we take this breath right now and breathe into this divine moment, recognizing that right here, right now, the divine power and the presence of God is. And that we are serving the greater good. We are expanding that beautiful thing called life. It is the life that is unfolding. It is the life that is calling us to a higher appreciation of who and what we are and how we live this life. It is the well-being of the universe breaking forward, breaking open in our souls. So how will you serve today? How will you honor your divine consciousness? How will you stay connected to Source? In the midst of chaos, there is the divine spirit. So we give thanks and praise for this day, for this time, for this conversation, for this awareness that I and my brother and my father are one. Well, you better listen, my sister and brother, 'cause if you do, you will hear the voices that are calling across the years. And they're crying across the ocean, and we're crying across the land, and we will until we all understand that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us in chains, none of us are free. Oh, there are people in the darkness, and they just can't see the light. show each other that we care. Get the message out loud and clear that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us in chains, none of us are free. 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 And one of us is in chains. Don't you know we are not free? Hey, yeah. Oh, thank you, Linda. That's our theme song for Wednesday, for Kitchen Conversations. And tonight is a doozy. Let me just put that out front. That's the disclaimer. Tonight is a doozy. As I was putting this show together, I lost it a few times. Because tonight we're talking about our children. We're talking about children of color and the legal system and how the balance is so uneven. It's heartbreaking to see what we are doing, and it is we, because if we're not participating, as the song says, and I had to call myself that I have held a blind eye to a lot of things that have been going on, to laws that have been passed. So I just want you to, as I was putting this together, and I was yelling at the at the computer. I was yelling, and there were moments that I was crying. And I was like, I don't want to engage in sensationalism, but I do want to share learning, to share what is going on. And if it feels called to you, to find out how you can jump in and participate. But one of the first things is to become aware that these are things that are happening within our system, and it's so systematic that it's really quite mind-blowing. So before we get started, there's a little video, and let me say we have a new media team that's in the house tonight. Oh, look at me, didn't turn off my phone. It's a wild Wednesday. So we're exploring and doing some new things, and I have to say thank you, Doug. I put a lot on him tonight. We're just being loving, and we have some sweet love in the house tonight. So let's put up this video. Those are the pictures. We want to do the video. So click one and take that out. The video's down at the bottom. The video's all the way down at the bottom. You should see a police car. The police. Is it time for reform? Is it time to defund? When we see that we are arresting children at the age of 5 and 6, is it time for us to rethink our system? A system that is failing our children and that's failing us. Police, defund, reform. What are the laws in your part of the world? Do you know? We understand that kids are not fully formed before 21. A lot of rules that we can't do until we're 21. Yet a child, 5 or 6, can be put into a juvenile detention? Things are upside down. We've got to turn them right side up. The police, juvenile delinquency, what are we showing them? What are we teaching them? How can we help them? 17,000 children here in Southern California at the age of 17 for felonies. The majority were children of color, and 36% were Latino. We've got to find a better way. Cops drawing guns before questions. Is this what we want? Or must we think? Police are for us, not against us. Recognize that there's a science, that there is a truth with each child. We are human beings. There are those politicians fighting to reform a lot of the laws. But there are many states, and it's mind-blowing, some of the things that they've put into action to our children. A better way, other solutions. I know it's possible. A jail cell for a 5 or 6-year-old, handcuffed, not something on a TV show, in real life, handcuffed children misbehaving. We are imprisoning our future. Our future is meant for us to have everyone equal, equality for all. But if we continue this, we will live in a country that's imprisoned within a prison, and our children will be raised in prisons. We are not against the police. We are for the police. We are for reform, a better way, so that we can all live in a space of divine peace and harmony. I believe it's possible. And I know that there are police that also feel this way. Each and every one of us. We need help. We need you. Yes. So there was some information that was happening while that was going on. And one of the first ones that I want to read to you, this is the Reform Act for 2018. I know you're like, I didn't know that was what was going on this Wednesday. But Kitchen Conversations, that's where we got to go. So the Juvenile Delinquency Prevention Act was first authorized in 1974 and realized that every state has its own laws around the juvenile delinquency program, for lack of a better word. Each state has its own laws. So in 1974, they created this law to have somewhat of a cohesive law in all states that states would adhere to, a foundation to start of how you would handle juvenile delinquents. It was established to ensure states and territories meet certain common standards for how youth across the country are treated in the justice system. It did this by establishing two core protections: a probation on the incarnation of being incarcerated of youth charged with criminal defenses, conduct that is a criminal, the conduct which is considered criminal is something that is engaged by an adult, such as something that's not engaged by an adult, like skipping school, running away from home. Those things are considered juvenile. Stealing, breaking into a car, those things in a lot of the states, no matter how old the child was, they were considered an adult. So this state helped create a formula. This law helped create a formula so that most states could adhere to, and that would be the starting point. They still had and do have precedents to do what they feel is correct for their state. For instance, Missouri, where I'm from, I was shocked to find out that in 2017, they passed a law. If a child gets into a fight or is charged with battery and assault, and this could be children fighting in school. This could be a couple of kids coming together fighting. Ranging from the age of 5 years old, starting at 5. At 5 years old, if a teacher in a school called the police on a child at 5 years old having a fight or having a temper tantrum, they could arrest that child, handcuff, and in all likelihood be booked, taken pictures of, fingerprinted, and they would have a felony on their record. I know, it's mind-blowing. Let's put up one of the pictures. So this picture here, this little girl, I know this story from YouTube. This little girl had a temper tantrum at school. She's 5 years old. The teacher called the police. The police came and arrested this baby. On YouTube, you hear her crying and screaming. They literally, because her little hands are so small, they use zip ties to tie her hands behind her back and put her in a police car. They took her to the station. They printed. They took fingerprints. It's just so upsetting, okay? They took fingerprints. They booked her. And then they called her grandmother. After they'd done all this, then they called her grandmother to tell her, and the grandmother said on the YouTube video, you see the grandmother saying, I thought this could not be real. I was like, I kept telling her, no, you must have the wrong child. My baby is 5 years old. 5 years old, and they're like, yeah. So the teacher said the child had a temper tantrum that was so out of control that the teacher, an adult, felt that they had to call the police, and this was how they handled the situation. So this is what they're saying in Missouri, that a teacher can do that as early as a child's at 5 years old in a fight, having a temper tantrum, out of control, that they can call the police and this child can be arrested. Now, there are so many things that just are pound in this. Number one, this, at least the information that I got, this particular law, they targeted toward children of color. And once a child, can you imagine at 5 years old getting a felony, and it's following you for the rest of your life? It will affect your opportunities. It will affect the school that you can go to. It will affect the jobs that you can participate in. But most importantly, they are finding, which I'm surprised that it's a shock, that kids that are incarcerated early tend to follow that pattern for the rest of their life. And what this child needs, I'm not saying that the child did not need some help, did not need some supervision. The police was not the answer. You need to have some type of social worker, some type of mental health person that can come in and help this situation, not the police. And this is the other thing that really pissed me off with the police officer, that you would think that that's something that you would do to a 5-year-old little girl. And he tells her, when you act up like this, this is what happens to you. What does that embed in a child's mind? We are in a state right now that if we don't realize that the way that we are being policed, the way our children are being policed, we are creating a world of criminals. We're creating it. We're creating it. So I was really surprised to find out, well, I shouldn't be, because I know Missouri is a very conservative state. And it's a very racist state. But I guess what surprises me is that these laws get passed. And so I'm like, well, you were clueless too. Not that I've lived in Missouri, but there have been laws here in Southern California that I've paid no attention to for the juvenile for our young people. So it is about, really paying attention to what laws are being implemented, what's being put out there. Reform is a must. It is an absolute must. Oh, Boston, Massachusetts. I've had the pleasure of performing in Boston a few times. And unfortunately, it has not been pleasurable in the sense of once I'm off the stage, there have been things that have happened. But Boston has a 24% people of color, yet, get this, 65% get arrested. So black people are getting arrested in Boston 6 to 7 times more than whites. And the children in Boston, the school system there, a lot like Missouri, except not 5, is 7. At 7, that child can be arrested. And one of the things when I'm looking for things like this, I want to look at the balance. And it's not that all kids of color are the only ones being arrested. There are definitely white kids that are being arrested as well. But the difference in the way the majority, it's mind-blowing. There, let's see the next picture. Oh, okay, this is great. This is not in Boston, but it is talking about a family. This is in Aurora, Colorado. I cried the first time I saw this video. This was a family of 4, a mother with her baby girl who was 2 or 3 years old, another daughter, 7, and her oldest, 14. They're driving in the car. They pull into one of those little mini mall shopping malls. The 6 or 7 cop cars surround them, guns drawn. Supposedly, this car was stolen. The license plate was stolen. The mother is shouting, I have my paperwork. I can show you my paperwork. I can show you. They have the guns drawn on them. They make, and this is in the summertime, they make every one of those kids get out. The 2-year-old is laying on the ground. Everybody has to lay on that hot asphalt. And she is screaming, I want my mommy, I want my mommy. They won't let the mother hold her child, nothing. They handcuff every last one of them. And the people that are standing around are yelling, my God, they're kids, they're children. And so In Colorado, they state that their protocol that if a car registers that it's stolen, that they are to come up to it as though it is, I forgot the exact phrase that they use, but danger. So they come with their guns drawn. They come ready to attack. And so there's so many things that are just upside down about that. But check this out. 2 hours. They keep those babies laying on that hot asphalt for 2 hours. What comes back? It wasn't a van. It was a motorcycle. And they go, well, it did have the same license plate. When we think that it's okay to assault before we even know, I'm not saying that the job of a police officer is easy, but there's got to be better ways. You've got a car full of women. You can't get the scene under control and then sit them in the car. It's so inhumane to have them laying in the hot sun on asphalt while you walk around, and the baby, the 2-year-old, is the video, she's just screaming. And it's so upsetting. Everybody's like, well, can I hold her? And the cops are like, no. Like, what does she have? Like a hidden shotgun? Yeah. It was the wrong car. It took you 2 hours. It took you 2 hours to find out that this was not. This wasn't even, it was a motorcycle, not even a car. And yet we think that's all right. And for me, it's not. Another case. This was a young white man. Ran a light, cop turns the light on, and he kept driving. And so you see him drive and pull into a driveway. He gets out of the car. The cop is right behind him, lights going on, cop gets out of the car. Sir, you ran that light. And by this time, his parents come out of the house. And they're like, yes, officer, no gun is drawn. He was called sir. Versus another 18-year-old young black boy ran a light. He drove to his house, to his driveway. The cops got out, guns drawn. They catch him in the doorway. He's yelling for his dad. Dad, dad, dad. They're beating the crap out of him. For us to think that treating our children this way, when I think about that little girl that's 2 years old, she will never trust another police officer. It would take hell and high water because that's been just damaged. This young man was wrong for running the light. And I'm not saying, but to get out with guns drawn, you saw him hands up, nothing in his hands. The aggression that takes place when somebody of color is stopped, is detained, even when I looked at how they talk to the kids. Let me see if we can catch this other picture. Would you put this one up, please? Oh, let's just show this picture. I talked about her already, but this was the baby that 5 years old that they arrested and booked. She's sitting next to her grandmother. It's amazing. That's not the one I want. Let's see if we can get another one. You're doing great over there, Doug. Fantastic. Let's see. Oh, we can show this one. This little boy was out of control. He was. I saw the video of this. But you hear in the beginning of the video, they see him, they throw him up against the wall, and as they're handcuffing him, they ask this other man, what did he do? So that lets me know that you don't even have a clue of that he's done something. But you saw this security guard chasing him. And so immediately you go to that he's at fault. And so we never found out what the kid supposedly had done. But it really escalates because they throw him into the ground. And he's a smarty pants. He is. He's got a lot of mouth. But he asks, what did I do? Why are you arresting me? And I think that's a fair question. I think anybody, as U.S. citizens, we should be able to ask, why are you arresting me? Why? And so they tell him to keep his mouth shut. He gets, then that escalates him. And so then when they turn around, he spits at the cop. He spits at the cop. And you see the cop push him in the chest, and then that bag, they put a bag over his head, which I could understand if he's spitting. But the whole point is that, and everybody, he's a kid. He couldn't have been no more than 11 years old. 11, it was 8 or 9 cops for this one kid. And so the story that I've gotten thus far was that he was with his friends at a carnival. The security guard saw him and he thought he had taken something. They never found anything on him. And I guess, you know, as my mother would say to me, you can't talk back to cops like that. But I have seen many of white people talk back to cops pretty bad. They didn't get a bag over their head. They didn't even get handcuffs. And it's like, oh my God. And we're doing this not only with adults now, but we're doing it with kids. And we feel comfortable doing it, watching them manhandle children. And someone asked the question as I was doing this work. They were like, well, why would he run? I said, really, black people are afraid of cops. Believe it or not, we really are. I said, you have no idea when a cop goes behind me, how nervous I get. I do. I've had encounters. Sometimes I've been right. Sometimes I've been wrong. But the legal system is not built to support us. It's the last thing to find out, even if you're in the right, that you have rights. And so it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, but fear takes over and people think irrationally. And now with a kid that you are handcuffing, I don't think I have a picture of this one, but in the video, they had taken this little boy because he was 6 years old. He ran away from school. He was mad at the teachers, mad at his classmates. And so there were 2 cops that, when you see the way they grabbed him and put him in the car, and they start berating this little boy. You are going to be in jail for the rest of your life if this is what you're going to do. He's 6 years old. 6 years old. This is what we're doing. We got to wake up. There must be reform in our police. And this is in every state. There has to be. Boston, Missouri, Texas, those states need even more. A lot of your states in the South, Virginia, where they have laws on there that are back like 100 years old, that really need to be taken off the books. And so we find that we have a system that we're imprisoning our kids. This doesn't work out well for anybody. Because we will end up having a system where kids, by the time they are 7 or 8, they've been incarcerated. They've gone to a juvenile facility where there are bars. They have to wear some form of a uniform, of a jumpsuit that says, you are a criminal. And then this, whatever they did at 7 or 8, this follows them for the rest of their life. Let's put up the next picture. This picture here. This little boy, for the most part, was very calm. The police officer, for me, was really abusive. The kid got into a fight in the schoolyard, and The teacher went on to say that he is a problem child, that he's always fighting and biting and doing this and doing that. And so they called the cops on him. And I believe he was 8, this little boy was 8 years old. One of the other things that's unfolding here is that parents aren't being called until after a child has been taken to jail, to juvenile. I mean, it's still a prison. So the parents aren't being called until after, which is, I think that should be illegal. And now the parent has an uphill battle that they're trying to deal with the legal system to get their child out of the legal system. It's just mind-blowing at 8 years old, out of the legal system at 8 years old. And so I know as I was going through this, my thoughts were, what do we do? What do I do? What can we do? So for me, the first thought was, okay, I must become aware. I must become aware of the laws that are here in Southern California that support our youth, that support our children. Florida, one of the worst states, not because of everything else, but let's just add this scoop to it. I guess we should applaud the other states because at least they have a 5 or 6 year minimum. Florida, there is no limit. They could arrest a child 2, 3, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. These same children that we're arresting, they can't go buy alcohol. They can't go buy marijuana. They can't drive. They can't vote. Yet they can go to jail. Something's upside down with that. Something's upside down with that. This last story that I'm going to share, unfortunately, it's become far too much of a typical story. Family in Texas, a man, black man, in a silver Cadillac. I don't have a picture of this one, Doug. In a silver Cadillac. Went into the grocery store, and one of his daughters wasn't breathing well with the mask. So he did what all great parents do, bought them some candy, and he has a 14-year-old. So there was a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And he bought them some candy, some treats, and took them back out to the car so that he could finish food shopping. What you hear is the 911 call. It's a white lady that says, there's a black man in a silver Cadillac. He has a gun, and he's sitting in the parking lot. And so you hear 911 say, is the car still there? Yes. And it was Safeway calling, saying that this black man had a gun sitting in the parking lot. So the cops arrive, and they arrive with their guns drawn. So there's a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 14-year-old sitting in the car, these little girls. And you couldn't understand, you could hear the 14-year-old with her hands out the window. We don't have anything, we don't have anything, we don't have anything. My sisters and I are here in the car. So the cop cautiously, gun still drawn, comes up to the window and gets a look and like, okay, these are just kids. Puts his gun away. So maybe a couple of seconds, you see the father coming out because the father hears all the sirens and things. As soon as he comes out, guns are drawn, and he puts his hands up. He says, look, I work for the city. Those are my kids. What are you doing? And they said, you have a gun. He's like, what are you talking about? I don't have a gun. What are you talking about? He said, I'm just in. And they said, and he turned to, don't move, don't move. And so they're like, we have to frisk you, sir. We just have to check and make sure that you don't have anything on you. He said, I have nothing on me. I was just in there shopping, food shopping for my kids. So they frisk him. He has nothing. They handcuff him. And he's standing there, and his daughters, and one of the things that to me that was so painful, I could feel this father that he's looking in the eyes of his daughter that's looking at him, and she's crying. And the baby girl, her 7-year-old sister, grabs her and is just holding her and rocking her. And so he's trying to explain, I don't have a gun. These are my kids. We went into the store. My baby girl, she has asthma, and she couldn't handle the mask. And he's telling him I brought him some candy, and I brought him back out, and I went back in the store so I could finish food shopping. The woman from Safeway comes out, and then you hear her telling the police officer, he left those kids in the car. And he said, and so you hear the police officer say, well, ma'am, someone reported that he had a gun. Well, he could have. Well, he could have. And that's the problem right there. I guarantee you, if that had been a white family, they would have asked questions first. We don't get the benefit of the doubt. There was a study done that affinity of bias. If someone doesn't look like you, you have less intention of having more understanding, of being more considerate. This is part of the healing that has to take place. This is part of the system that within the system has created a legal system to support this type of activity, this type of role play, these type of experiences and incidents. I have to say the cops were as mannerable as they could be under the circumstances. They did not get rough with the father. They did listen. And you saw one of the cops, he was disgusted because they're not going to arrest her because she's made a false claim. Man didn't have a gun. They checked the car. There was no gun. There was no gun. But what you've done is traumatize an entire family. And for what? Because you want to control where his kids go. He had a 14-year-old in the car. She should be able to make choices, which I'm sure she was. I mean, we could go through all type of explanations, but this is just outright, to me, hatred. It's hatred. It's a core of hatred and fear for people that look different than you. And this system that has caused us to do this to our children. So the question this week was, does the legal system treat our children of color differently? Yes. Yes, yes, and yes. They're treated differently in school. They're treated differently in the penal system. They're treated differently on the streets. And so we have to take a look. So getting back to what can we do? As I said, for me, first, being aware of the laws that are here in Southern California regarding the juvenile system. I feel that that's important now for me to stay abreast to what's happening. And things that are not the way I think that they should be, it's time to start writing. I have to say that I am doing more participating in our governmental system than I've ever done before. I sign petitions. I call the Senate office. I'm starting to take time, even though I don't enjoy. I mean, yesterday I was just whipping Willow, pissed off, yelling at the computer. But I know that it's things that have to be done for me to see what we can do to change. And police reform has to be done. It just has to. Lastly but not least, part of that police reform that has to be done is called let me get the correct phrase. It allows the cops, the police to be qualified immunity. Qualified immunity. The police officers, FBI, have this qualified immunity. They can assault, beat, kill the wrong person. And as a citizen, we have to prove that they were incorrect. And the chances of that happening are almost 0 to none. It says a government actor is allowed to violate your constitutional rights. You can't do anything about it unless the court has decided that those specific actions were in violation to you. And that means you have to go to the Superior Court. You've got to fight from the end to get back to the beginning. And so that's something that's on the police reform. That's something that we need to clarify. Police officers, it is a hell of a job, but they too must be accountable for following the laws. Becoming a police officer does not give you the right to not be a law-abiding citizen. And so recognizing what you can do for the election that's coming up, there are many on our REP page, there are many organizations that we work with that show you police reform, that you can sign petitions, that you can start to become aware and recognize this is not about, you know, the word defunding is just, I just feel like they picked the wrong word, but it means reform. That's all it means, that we need to reform, rechange the way our police system is unfolding. And so that is definitely one of the things, qualified immunity. We've got to change that. Because if police officers start becoming accountable for killing people, for beating people, I guarantee you they're going to think twice. They're going to think twice. So there's been a lot. Let's just take the breath in. And I thank you. I thank you for your patience, your love, whether you're seeing this now or you see it later, to hang in there and stay. This is the divine work that we do together, even coming together in this time right now to recognize that God is in this, that the chaos, the fear, the anger that's boiling up has to be uprooted so that we may see the beauty of the love of God that's in everything, that's in every police officer, that's in every law that's written. There is a consciousness of spirit that is birthing in and through it. And in order for us to see it, we must become a part of it. So in this breath, we breathe and let go. We let the divine hold our heart, our spirit, our thoughts, and we hold on to this truth that there is a divine right action taking place right now. We allow the love of spirit to just flow through us to each and every corner of this world. The love and light of God is right here. I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven, and it returns to me. I send my joy over the mountains. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heavens, and joy returns to me. So this is our Conscious Giving Time, and I have to say, Universal Spirit Center, you are fantastic in the divine givingness that you always do, how you show up. I am so grateful and thankful to each and every one of you. And these are the wonderful ways that you can support via mail. You can text it. You can PayPal it. Hey, you could even drop it off if you're here. We appreciate you. It is your conscious giving that allows us to be the global expression that we are, that we reach out and give back to the world, because we know that together all things can be done. All things can be done through each and every one of us that work together. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Some of the things that are coming up on our REP page, it is for our the Racial Equality Project. This is for the refugees. And it's for, if you want to participate in tutoring, I think you sign up for on Zoom on the 21st, 5:30 to 7. That's on our webpage. If you're interested in that, that's an awesome way to give back for all of the different refugees that are coming into the country right now. And definitely for Afghanistan, this one is kind of centered around that as well, to help build that bridge. So hopefully, if that calls to you, go on the REP page and click on there. Also, Reverend Sherry Ganan has a class coming up called Roots, I think it is, and it is done via Zoom. So please go on the webpage and check that out if that calls to you. Reverend Sherry is a dynamic teacher and speaker, so I know it will be a class that will be filled with a lot of wonderful information and divineness. As well, the movie of the month is coming up. Yeah, right here. This Friday, Time is a documentary. And this documentary is actually showing how our penal system is a little crazy. This is a true story. Well, yeah, it's a documentary. It's a fabulous, fabulous story about a family, a mother, a father. You don't want to miss it. So get here at 6, popcorn, candy, lots of drinks. Yay, yay, yay. And then at 6:30, we show the movie, and afterwards we unpack it. And we've had some amazing conversations and discussions. It's really, really powerful. And I think we have one more. Do we have one more slide? Nope. Okay, then I hit them all. How great that is. So I want to thank you all again for being here with me on Kitchen Conversations. Next week, we kind of in the midst of the fall equinox, but next week we will be doing favorite quotes and music. Ha 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 ha. A lot of our practitioners and reverends will be sending in their favorite quotes. Some may feel called to come and share them, and they'll express why. Quotes are so important that can help shift us. So I thought, oh, that feels yummy. That'll be great for Awakening Wednesday. So I thank you all for being here. I send my love over the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the valley, and love returns to me. Happy anniversary month, our 20th anniversary month celebration. Whoop, 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 whoop. We'll do our slides. We'll see you next week.